You prayed last night, but all you heard was silence. You whispered his name into the darkness, poured out your heart like water on stone, and waited. You waited for that familiar warmth, that gentle whisper, that sudden peace that lets you know he's listening. But nothing came. Just the sound of your own breathing and the weight of unanswered words hanging in the air like smoke. Maybe you're wondering if God has finally grown tired of your voice. Maybe you're starting to believe that your prayers bounce off the ceiling and fall back down like broken promises. Tonight, we're not going to pretend that silence doesn't hurt. We're not going to dress this pain in pretty church language or hide behind verses that feel hollow when your heart is breaking. We're going to sit in this silence together and name what it really is. The space between your desperate need and God's seeming absence. The gap between faith and feeling. The terrible quiet that makes you wonder if anyone is really there at all. This is about the prayers that God seems to ignore. The ones that matter most. The ones that come from the deepest places of need and meet only empty air. I know this silence because I've lived in it. I've knelt on cold floors at 3 a.m., my voice cracking as I begged for just one sign, one whisper, one tiny indication that my words were reaching beyond these walls. I've prayed until my throat was raw and my knees ached, only to rise feeling more alone than when I started. There's a special kind of loneliness that comes with feeling ignored by God. It's not like being ignored by people. You can explain that away, find reasons, build walls. But when the creator of the universe seems to turn his face from you, when the one who promises to hear every whisper appears to have gone deaf to your cries, that's a loneliness that touches the very core of who you are. I've been where you are, staring at the ceiling, wondering if my prayers are just words thrown into a void, questioning whether faith is just a beautiful delusion we tell ourselves to feel less alone in this cosmic darkness. Father, here we are again, raw and real and tired of pretending that your silence doesn't cut us to the bone. We come to you not with perfect faith, but with honest doubt. Not with unshakable trust, but with hearts that shake like leaves in a storm. We come because we have nowhere else to go, even though it feels like you're not even here. God, why do you seem to answer everyone else's prayers but ours? Why do we hear testimonies of miracles and breakthroughs while our own requests seem to disappear into empty space? Are we praying wrong? Are we not faithful enough? Are we asking for the wrong things? The silence is so heavy, Lord. It presses down on our chest like a weight we can't lift. We used to find comfort in quiet moments with you, but now the quiet feels like rejection. The stillness feels like abandonment. The peace we once knew feels like a memory from someone else's life. We confess that we're angry. Angry that you feel distant when we need you most. Angry that your timing doesn't match your desperation. Angry that faith feels like shouting into a canyon and hearing only our own echo. But what if your silence isn't absence but presence in a form we don't recognize? What if you're not ignoring us but teaching us to hear you in ways that go beyond words? What if you're not distant but working in depths we can't see, in timelines we don't understand, in ways that our limited perspective can't grasp? Jesus, you know what it feels like to cry out and hear nothing back. In your darkest hour, you asked why God had forsaken you. You felt the weight of divine silence, the crushing loneliness of unanswered prayer. You understand this pain because you've lived it. Maybe our prayers aren't being ignored. Maybe they're being absorbed into your heart, held there like precious things, worked into a response that's bigger than our immediate understanding. Maybe the silence isn't God's no, but God's not yet, or not like this, or I have something better in mind. Holy Spirit, we need you to translate our wordless groaning, our frustrated sighs, and our tear-stained silence. We need you to make sense of this space between our prayers and their answers. We need you to help us trust in the dark what you've shown us in the light. We're tired of feeling like we're praying to empty air. We're exhausted from waiting for signs that never seem to come. But we're here. Despite the silence, despite the doubt, despite the fear that we're talking to ourselves, we're still here. Because maybe showing up when you feel absent is the purest form of faith. Maybe continuing to pray when prayers feel pointless is the bravest thing we can do. Maybe trusting in the silence is harder than trusting in the noise, but it's also more real, more honest, more transformative. God, we don't understand your ways. We don't like your timing. We're frustrated with your methods, but we refuse to give up on you even when it feels like you've given up on us. We choose to believe that your silence is not indifference, your seeming absence is not abandonment, your delays are not denials. You are God and I am not, and in that gap lies both my frustration and my peace. If this prayer has touched the silent ache in your soul, you're not alone. If you've been living in the space between asking and receiving, between crying out and hearing back, between faith and doubt, you belong here. Write "still praying" in the comments if you're choosing to keep talking to God even when He seems quiet. Write "I'm here" if you're showing up to faith even when faith feels absent. Write "waiting" if you're holding on to hope even when hope feels hollow. Your persistence in prayer, even when prayers feel pointless, is an act of radical faith. Your continued seeking, even when God feels hidden, is a form of worship that moves heaven even when you can't feel it. The silence you're experiencing isn't the end of the conversation. It might be the most important part of it. Sometimes God's greatest answers come wrapped in silence. Sometimes His most profound presence feels like absence. Sometimes His deepest work happens in the waiting, in the wondering, in the space between our questions and His response. Tomorrow, we'll pray for those whose faith feels fractured, whose trust feels betrayed, whose relationship with God feels broken beyond repair, because even shattered faith can be rebuilt into something stronger, more beautiful, more real than what came before. But tonight, rest in this truth. Your unanswered prayers are not unheard prayers. Your unmet needs are not unnoticed needs. Your silent nights are not empty nights. God is in the silence, working in ways you cannot see, preparing answers you cannot imagine, weaving your waiting into a story that will one day make perfect sense. Keep praying, keep believing, keep showing up. The silence won't last forever, but the strength you're building in it will.